For 3 nights in a row, the city of Leipzig saw demonstrations that turned into riots. Particularly affected was the east of the city and also Konowitz, which is a borough famous for its extreme leftist population. The most severely affected night was that one from Friday to Saturday, because the police presence was very low at the time and they weren't totally surprised, even though there was already some riots going on the night before, obviously. But they were taken by surprise and they fled the demonstrators at some point, which is a very, very bad sign. If you show weakness, these people are just emboldened. So on this Friday, the demonstrations started in the borough of Neustadt-Neuschönfeld with 350 people. According to the authority office Ordnungsamt, it grew to 500 people later on. Police officers were attacked, police cars were damaged, explosives were thrown at the offices. Trash containers were set ablaze, barricades were erected, and a police helicopter pilot was dazzled with a laser pointer. In total, 22 people were arrested. There are arrests for damage, for dangerous threats of the air travel. That's the pilot thing. And then there is, of course, trespassing. Of the 2 nights, nine police officers in total have been injured. At around 1:30 on Saturday, multiple people sprayed graffiti on a tram, and around 150 people fled the scene when police officers arrived. So they knew that they are kind of guilty of something, obviously. And so by the time of the night from Saturday to today, more police officers came into the city. So I want to talk a bit about the organizers, Leipzig besetzen. I'm not claiming that they are the organizers of the riots, but obviously they have called for protests, and they are engaged in what I would call illegal activity. And you will see it's basically burglary. They don't see this as illegal because they don't recognize property as such. And I want to talk a bit about their publications, the texts they have left behind on their website. So what started the protest was that one house was cleared of squatters. The owner is a small business man who builds instruments. He specialized in bows. So it's like a small business man. They have lifted his identity and it's published on their website, even though he asked them not to publish his identity, and they also refer to him in their writings as this music instrument maker. So this was a guy who has worked all his life and wanted to buy a home to rent out to somebody else so he can finance his retirement. That was the idea. According to the squatters that have been evicted by the police, and this is what started the protests or riots, according to them, the house was not used anyway. So that's why they just occupied it. And this is not the first time they do it, as you find out in a moment. They have taken a number of objects at the same time. So this house, Ludwigstraße 71, was taken as a permanent object. The others were just inspected for maybe future possession of it. Of course, they would not admit that this is possession because they claim they are not for property, but they are fighting whatever they have got under their control with tooth and nail. So obviously, they do believe in property, but that's not part of their ideology, so they don't honestly say so. And the alternative buildings, of course, were less interesting because people went in and out all the time, and this music instrument maker lives outside and is planning off-site what is going to happen with the object. So on 2 objects in the street Leipziger Straße, they have left signs with a description occupied, and the houses to those who need them. Of course, the claim is that this music instrument maker would not need that anyway. And of course, they also claim that the house was just derelict and just stood there You cannot tell from outside how an object is used, if it is used or not. Maybe it is used for storage, maybe some people lived there before that you have not recognized. It really does not matter. It's somebody else's object. But the reality that this is none of their business is not quite recognized by burglars. They have gone into the house and immediately sent a proposal of how the object, how the building is to be used in future. And of course, it is the right of every owner to decide on his own with whom to make businesses, with whom to make deals, and to get offers from multiple sides. It is not just one side that comes along and says, I want to do this with that building and I have some suggestions and you can pick one. No, it is actually the prerogative of the owner to decide who gets to do what with your building. And this is not recognized. So they have sent a plan for the use of the object to both the media and the city council. And of course, what somebody's going to do with this object is neither the matter of the media or the city council. It is the prerogative of the owner. And still, they have an enormous amount of resources to use against any business person or any owner, any property owner that they wish to bully. Quite surprising. Quite surprising levels of financial backdrop they have, because they immediately, they sent out these proposals and they immediately rent a room for negotiations, like they are legitimate partners or something. They had a lawyer on board, and this shows there is a milieu around these people. Obviously, there are a lot of professionals that are happy to do business without any remuneration whatsoever, and this is for ideological reasons. They believe that attacking capitalism or attacking, decent people, decent property owners, is more important than their personal income. So they have the rooms, they have the lawyers, and the leader of the Office for Construction and City Renewal even gave them a personal visit on the 25th of August. And that's, of course, not a financial resource, but you see how easily they are treated as respectable people. You have a hard time if you criticize immigration or anything to be treated as a respectable person, no matter how much you have contributed to society. These scoundrels have not contributed anything, but they are treated like royalty, and they have this attitude that they just burgle into something and then they make suggestions to the owner what room should be turned into what. So according to them, it's not onto the owner to find the best partner to make use of any property, and they protest basically the fact that the owner has the right to look for different offers and ask for more offers to come in before he makes the final decision who gets to use the rooms for what purpose. This is his prerogative, but they don't recognize this prerogative, and instead they have sent to the city council and to the media their suggestions of how they want to use the property. So before the negotiations with that group was stopped, they have asked him for a purchase price, and again, you wonder where in the world they would have the money. After the negotiations, they have been closed. They have left on their website this nice line where they make clear that during the negotiations, the owner obviously let them know that he had solicited an expertise into the value of the building. Based on that, they wanted to know the value of the object, and additionally, they offered an expertise of their own, or that they would solicit some experts to create a report of the value of the real estate. Again, this means these people are not lacking money. These people have a lot of money. They just decide to spend it on harassing other people rather than to just buy an object on the market. And this is how the squatters described their eviction from the place. Yesterday, on the 2nd of September, the Louis 71, that's how they have called now the object, the Ludwigstraße 71. Around 6 o'clock in the morning, the cops have tried to enter the house. You see, cops is the same slur in German, Bullen. So it's related to the same animal as in English. It's also an insult. Thanks to stable barricades, they needed a rambok. Thanks to stable barricades, the rambok, that was not possible with a rambok. That means they have not tied it up. They could only access with a motor saw. Thanks to the solidarity of the vigilant neighbors, as well as our own scout system, which detects the basin movement in the quarter, the people in the house could flee the police in time. I must say that the movement of the basin is not a word that I do understand. I have absolutely no idea what they exactly mean. I've never seen this word Wannenbewegung before. It does not exist normally. I think they just mean that they have spies and they look into everything around the place. So the basin or the bowl, or I don't know, but what it's supposed to mean exactly. As you can see, I've highlighted a number of words. In blue, there is the word for neighbor. That is a descriptor for an individual of a group related to the situation, to the function in the text and so forth. And in yellow, you see word groups that include the word Mensch. In Yiddish and English, derived from the Yiddish, you know the word to mean a very great human being. In German, it just means human being. And as of recently, we have this newspeak that any descriptor for an identity is replaced with Mensch who, Mensch with, Mensch that. And this is to create a kumbaya sleaze that is supposed to cover up the tracks that's left. Does engage strongly in identity politics, but does not want to admit it. So they don't admit they are basing everything on identity traits right now. And so we are reading Mensch this, Mensch with, and so forth. At the same time, we have a movement to replace or to eradicate in one way or another the word race from the constitution. It only appears in the sentence. One should not be unequally treated on the basis of race, but that's also just to give the impression that the left does not care about identity, when that's basically everything they do right now. So after the Menschs in the house could flee, another 4 Menschs around the building have been picked up, and their identity has been noted by the police. 3 persons here again. They use a standard word. They could have used Mensch again, but that would be just too much. So they are still using old speech occasionally. So 3 individuals or persons were taken to the police station Dimitrov. 2 Menschs again were accused of trespassing. And the next sentence is, that means they are accused of being squatters. So this is the tone of it. They mean that it is illegitimate to think of squatters as criminals. Some of the texts of their websites are English, so I can quote a suggestion of theirs in English or half English, and it gives you some insights. In addition to progressive and great projects such as the Miethäuser Syndikat, a syndicate of tenants, or Wächterhäuser, an arrangement of inhabiting and housekeeping instead of renting, which have been successfully implemented in recent years, squatting is an essential radical form of individual and collective self-empowerment. So this is just in the line of empowerment, feminism, anti-racism, and so forth. This has been successfully implemented over the past years. This is true as you probably know from earlier videos of mine. I've actually made a few videos about Konowitz, not about the Riga Street, a very similar situation which you will find in the description box. They have bullied owners so long. I mean, this milieu of squatters have bullied owners so long that eventually they have created some low rent or no rent rent contracts. So it's been legalized after the fact. And this is what they want to do. And Wächterhäuser, this arrangement of inhabiting and housekeeping instead of renting, basically means you have to write off everything you hoped from your property. So, for example, this music instrument builder is supposed to just write off his retirement income, and instead he just lets them this house for the Wächterhäuser model. That's the arrangement of inhabiting and housekeeping instead of renting. So instead of the income, they just wipe the floor. So at some point you want to know what these people actually want and what they don't want. And there's an English text on their website, which I'm quoting now to shed some light on it. We don't want people to found institutions, collect signatures, or beg with the city. We want direct actions, we want occupations, we want to develop struggles to reclaim our own lives in the city. As I said, they have a lot of support, so obviously they are doing this on purpose. They are not needy people. And as I've always said in the past, it becomes very obvious that these people actually want to make trouble for the sake of trouble. And this is basically what they say. They want to develop struggles. It is how David Horowitz says, the issue is never the issue. The revolution is the issue. So these people are at the basic troublemakers, and they just claim to be about something else in order to upset other people. That's the whole point. There is no, it is not political to begin with. They just claim to be, or it's not, let's say, pragmatic to begin with. It is political because troubles are political. But it is not. It doesn't have a purpose outside of getting people into trouble. Another problem on the road to revolution is obviously that people feel safe and comfortable. So they write on their website, another factor of expulsion. Here they are whining about being driven out of the places they have burgled. Is police operations, as can be seen, e.g. in Eisenbahnstraße street, namely as a state's measure to make and keep a quarter safe. And this is what they call gentrification. Basically, they are anti-good. They don't like that people have a better life in future. They want everybody to have miserable lives, and safety, of course, leads to prosperity. And this is what they have to stop, or this is what they try to stop. And this is also why they like to attack the police and have now this backup from nefarious factors in our elitist circles. And of course, in order to cover up for the malice of the core of their ideas, they have to throw a lot of accusers against everybody else. And because little of that can be actually substantiated, they do so in the most vague terms. And I'm just reading out a quote from the website that's just English, so you get an idea anyway. All these phenomena of repression are due to the increasingly striking contradiction between actual needs of people and the calculations and logics of capitalism and governments. Social relations and existing social conditions are now are not only dysfunctional but harmful. Social suffering is systematically generated in capitalism. The state's racist migration policy, which results immediately in people's death. That's grammatically wrong, but I just corrected. Cold-blooded irrationality triumphs. the state system, which is supposed to protect social life, has become its threat, its social and ecological negation. It's all so vague, but it sounds very dramatic, doesn't it? It sounds like you want to read this in a poetry class. But because they are so dishonest, they give themselves away occasionally, and this is also an interesting episode. As I've mentioned, there are a number of buildings they are squatting, and they have tested a number of places and tried to figure out who is fighting back how hard. They tried the Hermann-Liebmann-Straße in 93. They wrote, after the building had been abandoned long time, it is currently under construction for already several months. We opened the lock with a universal key. In the hallway, a camera beamed at our faces, which were masked by reason of repression and corona. I don't know if a French person has written this. It sounds very French. After a few minutes, a security guard showed up. We have been aware of construction sites being very likely to be monitored. So they are not quite abandoned, right? The claim that they are just burglaring stuff that's not used anyway, just derelict property that's empty. Why aren't people using it? It's just for speculation. That's also a word that comes up again and again, and it's never explained really. But they have already noticed that when people are actually working on an object, it's used, or it's supposed to be used, and for other purposes than what they have suggested. We didn't have much time inside. However, it didn't matter. There wasn't much to see anyway. The renovation seems to take a little longer. We'll come back when it's completed. So, are they now for gentrification or not? They do want people to renovate stuff occasionally. They just want to reap it after other people have put in the work. That's the whole thing, right? They are not actually against property. They just want to control the property. And they are not against reparations. They just want that to be done before they move in, and they don't want any rent adjustment or price adjustment related to any reparations. Another object they have tried and left without explaining this on their website is a Discoursstraße. Oh my goodness. And they say it's one of 4 objects they have mock occupied because it's a game or it's a protest. If you cannot explain anything, and it's always a protest, that's just the default word for whatever they cannot explain. And so they are patrolling the potential objects they may burgle like any burglar. The only difference is that your traditional burglar, so to say, takes some stuff out of the building and leaves the building behind, and these people just take the whole building. Okay, they are worse than your average burglar. And the entire threads of this ideology or what they claim to believe comes together in the following sentence, which I think is just so great. It exposes them totally. We want our lives and accommodations to be excellent, but free of rent and carried in our hands. There is a word for it: property. If they could just admit that they want property, their entire ideology would go out of the door. They would just maybe look for a job, but they would stop companies from creating jobs, and they would stop driving investors out of a city. They would live productive lives if they could admit publicly and openly and honestly that the thing they want, outside of the troublemaking and so forth, the revolution for the sake of the revolution, the thing they want is property. It's property. That was it for today. Thank you for listening, and I'll see you soon. Bye.